Blaine Fowler joining us now over Zoom from the comforts of home. Blaine,
what's up, Blaine?
Happy Friday, man.
You guys know I would be in there with you, but I've had a little cough that I don't want to give to you guys. So
we appreciate
I decided to be the safety guy. Because remember, we all worked on the safety videos for the missionaries. And in that spirit, I stayed home today.
It's great use of situational awareness on your part, Blaine.
Obedience to the rules. If you know, you know.
Hey, Blaine, while you were at home last night with that cough, I'm sure you felt bouts of frustration like I did, and maybe Jarom did at moments as you watch BYU take on LMU and kind of miss opportunities. But what's your #1 concern for BYU after last night's game specifically?
Well, I'll give you my #1 and then my kind of 1B. My one is for them to have a couple of players that have the identity of big-time step-up players in the clutch. And, you know, we've seen some flashes of maybe Rudy could be that guy, maybe Spencer Johnson can be that guy, but there really hasn't been anybody on this team. And remember, the guys that have kind of done this are either new faces, brand new faces, just off of missions. Like I'm thinking like a Dallin Hall, Rudy Williams, who's a new face to the program. But when you're in tight ball games, especially on the road, you have to have somebody, and it can't be a post player that relies on other people to get them the ball, that with the ball in their hands can say, okay, we've got to match shots, and when we get stops, we have to make shots down the stretch. And I'm concerned that we don't know who that person is, and certainly whoever that person is hasn't been consistent enough for us to go, yep, that's the guy. I think about LMU last night. Even Shelton, who didn't shoot it that well during the course of the game, he was 6 of 15 overall and 1 of 5 from 3.
Yeah.
But down the stretch, when they had to have a couple of shots, he got real physical, went inside, and made shots that he had to make. And on the other end, like Gideon George, who'd been shooting the ball lights out all game long, had 3 straight wide open threes and didn't come close. And so great players, when the game's on the line, they elevate their game. They become really, really focused, and they're more accurate with their shooting. Their decision-making gets better, and their shooting percentage goes up. They don't miss free throws. When the game's on the line, the great players get better, and it is in any sport. Think of Tom Brady. Why is he always 7 of 8 on the 2-minute drive at the end of the game? His focus just goes like this, and he's great. And for BYU, I'm looking for somebody to step up and be that person. The last couple of years, it's been Alex Barcelo for them, and he was money in that role. They need to find that person. Is it Rudy? You guys mentioned Trevin. Now, when Trevin comes back, is he a guy that can make open shots when they have to have him down the stretch? Is Dallin Hall going to grow into that? I mean, Jimmer was maybe one of the best ever at that, but Jimmer wasn't Jimmer until he was a junior. He certainly wasn't the Jimmer we know as a freshman, and then just was a glimmer of who he could be as a sophomore. Then as a junior and senior, he was that guy, and they won every close game because of it. So that's my biggest concern, is that they haven't found that guy yet.
Comment, then a question. Yeah, with Dallin Hall, we got to remember, he's fresh off a mission. It's January. This is the time when, if there's going to be a lull, it's going to start to sort of happen here. Physically, perhaps he can overcome that. But then the other thing is it worth it for Trevin Knell to come back? Because this isn't looking like an NCAA tournament-type team. If you're Trevin, do you wait for 2 years in the Big 12?
And that's the – if he can – I feel like if it goes more than about another week, probably not worth coming back. And maybe you keep him, because I feel like he's an elite shooter. I feel like he's a guy that can make shots down the stretch. You really could use a guy that shoots the ball like that coming down the stretch in the Big 12 for sure. So if he can come back in the next 7 days, I'd say, boy, you need him to help with the chemistry of this team. If he can't, then you really have to consider, do you just have him sit out and have 2 years left to play? So I think it's really, really close. I think it's borderline time on that right now.
Blaine Fowler is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Let's flip the page to BYU football, because it's been a while since we talked to you. We haven't been able to discuss specifically with you the addition of Keaton Slovis at quarterback for BYU and Aiden Robbins at running back, among some other pieces that are coming in. So let's start with the quarterback, Blaine, because that's your position. You played quarterback at BYU.
Wait, what?
How would you assess BYU's signing of Keaton Slovis, and what do you expect from him in his final campaign as a college quarterback?
I expect him to be really, really good in this offense. And, I got a chance to visit with Keaton, and we weren't allowed to say. It was killing me to not say something about it when I met he and his parents at practice about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. It's a couple of weeks before they made the announcement. And the conversation I had with him, I walked away and I'm like, man, I hope we get that guy. Because I talked to him about what are you doing here? Like, why BYU? And he said, listen, I was at USC. They utilized my skills. Timing of injuries and all the things that I had there caused me to leave. I went to Pittsburgh expecting to run a pro-style offense and to be able to develop, and the OC and the quarterback's coach changed. So my purpose for coming to BYU is, first of all, I really like the culture here. And I thought, okay, that's a great start. And he goes, second of all, I want to play in an offense where I can learn and grow and get better in a pro-style offense that prepares me to play in the National Football League. So if I come here, I mean, we're all in on getting better and running this offense with Aaron Roderick calling the plays and helping develop me. And I just thought, man, I love the attitude. And when I look back at his freshman and sophomore year at USC, this is an NFL talent physically. He can make every throw on the field. He's played in a ton of big games. He'll come in and have played in more P5 games than any other player on the team when he walks in there. And so he's been there and been in that position. And if he comes with the mentality that he talked about, where I want to learn from Aaron Roderick, I want to understand this offense and run a pro-style offense, I think they have the weapons around him, especially with the additions at running back, that he can be very successful this year and be a great leader for this team. As they manage their first season as a P5 school at a P5 conference.
BYU certainly needs it. Do you feel like BYU also needs another quarterback? Because I think Spencer and I agree that another guy to compete for the backup spot with Cade Fennegan and company would be good.
Yeah, I really like Cade Fennegan's skill set. He never was really healthy this last year. What people don't understand is when they saw Jacob Conover made that brief appearance in one game down the stretch, that would have been Cade had he not been in a boot. He had kind of worked his way into that number 2 position because they like the way he fits in this offense. And they love Jacob Conover, but they just felt his skill set was different than the offense that they wanted to run. Cade also can make all the throws. He's been in this offense. I'm confident if he can stay healthy that he can be solid and develop. And I also really like Ryder Burton. Ryder's enrolling is in school right now. So he graduated early, and he's going to be there. And I never want to see a freshman have to play, but I feel like he's got the kind of skill set that can thrive in this offense. So they're going to have at least 3 in there that I think can compete, push one another, and continue to develop. And what you really want is you want Fennegan and Burton to develop. But I say you recruit right over the top of people every year. That's the old way at BYU. And if you can find another transfer with 3 years that's willing to sit for a year behind Slovis, or you can find a JC guy with 3 years. I'm not opposed to taking that guy, but I am opposed to just signing somebody to have another body. If it's not somebody that can truly compete, and they're at the level with Burton and with Fennegan and with Slovis, then there's no purpose in bringing them in.
Blaine, I'll add this, and then I'll ask you the final question. I fully anticipate that BYU will add a junior college transfer quarterback and think that's just a number of days away from happening. And a guy, like you said, who will come in and when he takes over, if he takes over, would have multiple years of eligibility to play. And you would think would learn from Slovis and push those other guys. But we could save that topic for another day if and when I think that goes official. I do need to ask you about the defensive staff because the final piece is in play now. With the addition of Justin Enna, who's going to be coaching the linebackers, he joins Jay Hill and company on the defensive side. How much of an impact do you realistically think that this coaching staff, the defensive side specifically, can make for BYU as they go into a Power 5 conference? I
think the biggest thing that this group can bring is that they've a guy like Sione, a guy like Kelly, and a guy like Justin have all recruited at a high level and have landed P5 type talent. And Jay, even though he's been at FCS, before that he was at Utah and was well known as a guy that was a phenomenal recruiter that could connect with parents, that could connect with players, and get them to come and compete. I think that's the biggest thing. I think the diversity of this staff is going to allow them, and the background of this staff is going to allow them to connect with more and better athletes and upgrade the talent. That's the most important thing. And then the other thing I think is important is I feel like Jay Hill is going to be the DC as a mirror image of Kalani philosophically on defense. And that, I think that's important. I think Kalani wants to have input and be an integral part of what they're doing, but Jay and he think almost identically when it comes to how you run defenses. And what you saw in the bowl game was that philosophy. I mean, Kalani, Jay wasn't a real part of that other than just kind of watching and observing, but that was the defense that Kalani put together, and he gave to Gavin and Jan and those guys, this is what we're doing, this is how we're running it. That was Kalani calling the defense, and I thought they played really well against a very explosive SMU offense. And so stylistically, I think it's a great fit. The most important thing is recruiting. They got to upgrade the athletes, especially on the defensive line. I feel this staff can do it. I think Sione is going to be phenomenal. And then the second thing is, philosophically, do they do the same things, and is everybody on the same page? I think that's going to be the case, and therefore I think we're going to see increasing production on the defensive side over the next couple of years.
Always a great time with the fabulous Blaine Fowler. He is our elite dual threat analyst. Blaine, happy Friday once again. Let's give you some karma to take care of that cough so you can come back and hang out with the studio as soon as possible.
I need to be rid of this cough at worst by Thursday when we do the pre and post for Gonzaga, right, Jarom?
Yes.
Got to be healthy for that, which I'm almost certain, because I've only coughed once during this whole show. That's a milestone.
Yeah, it's a win.
I coughed twice.
And then by next Saturday, when we're all involved in calling that the Pepperdine, we got a big week coming up this next week, so got to get healthy. I appreciate all the karma I can get.
You got it. Thanks, Blaine. Great to talk with you.
All right, guys.